Namaskar, I'm Ashok VYas, and I'm visible in front of course, the photograph of Mr. Jahangir Ratanji Doda Bhai Tata. And why this picture is here and who is the gentleman who I'm hiding, why don't I bring him right here? Shishir Joshipura ji, welcome, namaste.
Namaste.
So Shishir is joining me from Pune, and what important achievement as a nation also involved you may be termed as farm to flight. That's how, and you also had a minister. So let's begin by requesting you to tell us all about what happened, where the flight came, and how farm word has become associated with flight.
Yes, thank you, Ashok. So the whole concept is centered around the fact that mobility as the base of human progress and survival that we know. Over the years, इतने सालों से we have always used fuel that comes from below the ground. We refine it on our refineries and use it in different forms, petrol, diesel, jet aviation fuel, and things like that. But while it definitely pushed a lot of progress on the humanity, it came at a cost, and that cost we started to understand a little later. And that cost was that while we were doing this, we were also we are compromising the future of our grandchildren, because the CO2 emission that was associated with this below the ground uh, CO carbon that was being released in the atmosphere with the use of those fuels was leading to a phenomena of climate change and global warming. And now, therefore, a big effort is globally underway. How can we reduce the carbon dioxide emission even as we do not compromise on our ability to move and be mobile and actually be even more mobile than we have been in the past? So, under that concept, as a company, Praj Industries, where I work, we have been working at this concept for many years, almost since our inception 40 years ago, where the concept of mobility for us meant, can we not find sustainable fuels which do not pollute, which do not create this CO2 emission? And that is how our company has progressed over the period of time. We have installations of our technology and plants in over 100 countries now, including United States. And what we are working on, therefore, is this whole concept of mobility on surface, which is the cars and four wheelers and trucks that we see on the road. Then we go to air, which is what the picture behind you, and I'll just talk about it in a minute, and marine. So there are three forms of mobility that we have. So the occasion that was yesterday was a historic day in India, and these are not my words. These are the words of Honorable Minister Puri, Minister of Petroleum and Natural Gas in India, who's there seen in this picture. Uh, because yesterday we demonstrated that we can actually take a sugar cane from the field in Maharashtra, process it, and create aviation fuel out of it, which meets all the international standards, and fly a commercial jet aircraft from Pune to Delhi on a mixture of this with the Jet A1 as per the law. And that was the first event yesterday, was first time in the history of the country that it happened, wherein we demonstrated a flight full of passengers. It was a normal flight, and AirAsia were our partners. Indian Oil was our partners to fill the fuel on the ground, and together we created a model. We demonstrated a model of what's possible in future, because that, I believe, will be the path. So that is how the farm angle came. That sugar cane that was growing in the fields of Maharashtra, we took that and we converted that to a aviation fuel, which meets the international standard of what is called as sustainable aviation fuel, or SAF. There's a big program underway in the United States also right now under the IRA Act, where there's a 3 billion gallon by 2030 announcement by the Energy Secretary. I was in Pittsburgh last year when this announcement was made. So the world is moving to create more sustainable aviation fuel so that we reduce the CO2 emission and we create a more sustainable future. And we don't borrow from our grandchildren their future and live today.
So we'll come back to how it happens, the process wherein the R&D, and it must have been labor of love for many years. Scientists, researchers, your R&D, and then working in collaboration with uh, the company. So a little bit of that, but before that, some important points that came about during this conversation, and what was the approach of urban affairs minister, honorable minister Shri Hardeep Singh Puri. Any point which he made that tells you about government's policy, and especially is there any way government is providing some stimulus for this kind of um, uh, efforts which are actually going to help the whole humanity, since we are talking about sustainable aviation fuel.
So, Ashok, the current government is extremely pushy and committed to the cause of sustainable energy. In 2018, the government unveiled a national biofuels policy wherein they laid out the whole roadmap of how India will go and transit from just a fossil fuel based energy nation to a more sustainable energy mix as we move forward. Under that program, a very, very ambitious program that is absolutely unparalleled in the world right now, is that the government said, all right, so on all our surface transport, that is the car, the petrol, vehicles using petrol, let's put it like that. The mixture of the petrol will no longer be pure petrol. In India, you will get 20% ethanol and 80% petrol. That's the mix that we will get. Now, that's a huge leap forward. And when the announcement was made, we were at 1.5% of mix. So from 1.5 to 20 is a journey that the country has undertaken right now. The target was that by end of 22, we should reach 10%. And you will be very happy and perhaps surprised to know that this was a government target, but we achieved it 5 years ahead of 5 months ahead of the time as a
Wonderful.
nation. So 10% is already reached, and 2025 is the target for reaching 20%. As part of that effort, obviously that was on the surface. So what do you do for aviation fuel? Because that is also equally CO2 emitted anywhere impacts everybody same. So how do we go about doing that? So under that program, we were working on this for almost over 5 years in our labs. We also have a collaboration with a company out of Denver called Jivo Incorporated, which is a US based company, and we work with them together to co-develop this technology. And then we moved forward from there, where we said it is possible for us to demonstrate, because one of the big worries for God, so there's another path of doing the same thing. You can create the same fuel, but then you use oil, palm oil, rapeseed oil, one of these seed based oils, or use cooking oils. And unfortunately, India is not an oil seed producing nation. We have to import oil seeds, so then it doesn't solve our problem. So we had to find a pathway which actually uh, sort of meets multiple goals of the government. So I'll just start counting for you, so you start to get this is how big this program can get. So the first step is that it is an agriculture feedstock, so it's renewable. It comes back every crop season, right? Every crop you can grow the crop again, so it's very renewable in that sense. So there's a farmer that gets linked with farmer. Obviously, there's a rural economy that gets
Yeah.
linked.
So allow me to interrupt, and I know your flow is very good, but it will just give us another perspective. Someone suggests in a board meeting that let us consider making use of sugar cane as a substitute of fuel. How many people would take that person seriously? I mean, how this all started?
Yeah. So as I was telling you, 40 years ago, when the company was founded, our founder was when he was growing up. He was growing up inside a sugar mill. His parents worked there, so he always had a perspective of doing something that connects what happens in sugar mill to a modern industry. He's a IIT Mumbai graduate, very very renowned in his own field of bioenergy. Uh, in fact, he's the only Indian and only Asian to receive, non-American, let me put like that, to have received the prestigious George Washington Carver Award, which is equivalent of Nobel in the field of bioeconomy. So his heart, his commission, his commitment, his vision, his passion is everything around this. So he's gathered people around him who are also similar thinking, right?
His
So
name?
Dr. Pramod Chaudhary. Hmm. So he lives, eats, breathes bioenergy. Nothing else matters. And I think that's where the root or the seeds of the company were right. And then obviously it attracted people who sort of committed to similar kind of cause, right? And therefore the question for us is never, hey, how can you do this? The question for us is, when will you do this? Okay, so when we created the concept of mobility, we said, all right, you started one feedstock, what are the next feedstock? So we can do this from sugarcane. Hell, we can also do this from sugarcane bagasse. Bagasse is what is left after we extracted all the juice. Okay, can we convert that? We can. Can we convert rice? We can. Can we convert corn? We can. Can we convert store of corn, which is what's left over after you remove the corn, the one what's standing? Can we do rice straw? Can we do it from the grass? So we are very happy looking at any organic form of either and mostly agriculture waste, which can be then put to use and get converted. So our whole being is research and development in that direction. We have a state of the art R&D center here in Pune, and that continuously does this research. And of course, this is a word where you also collaborate with.
Is it cost effective, or is it much more costlier than the normal fuel? It is one question. Of course, even if it is slightly costlier, still people will go because the organic farming and all those things are also having their place. But in the long term, the cost effective factor might play some role for how far it goes.
You are absolutely correct. So there are two ways in which this will move forward, right? One is it becomes cost competitive on its own feet. That will take some time because obviously it has to scale up, the volumes have to go up, technology has to become mature, and so on. And that's a path that is given for any technology where it starts to where it goes, right? But the critical point is this: there's also a mandate today, as I was telling you, the ICAO agreement, which actually mandates for the signatory countries to, and which is over 140 countries now, to ensure that at least from 27 they start blending 2% of the sustainable aviation. It's a journey that just starting. We are just at the start of the journey. So the next 2 years are voluntary. That is, you don't. There is no penalty if you don't do it. So you can just test and run and check what happens and how the whole system works in the ecosystem. But from 1st January 27, it's mandatory. So mandates allow certain things to happen, right? That's the second one. The third is sometimes there are also incentives which governments will give. Depends. Every government may have different incentive program. For example, United
Okay,
States.
so here's another question. When you say mandatory, meaning it is government's decision that all the aviation companies will need to rebuild their engines, etc. I mean, it would, if I'm understanding it correctly, it like recently, after you don't have the rupees 2000 note in circulation, then you have to figure out either you change it, etc. But that is a smaller thing. But in this case, the all flights. What I'm thinking is, will it incur a lot of investment on the part of these companies, and it would eat into their potential profits, which probably are already declining because the economy is on the downside globally also. So, and again, when you want to move forward in certain direction, you take into account whatever costs are there, but it would put a lot of people in a lot of people, meaning the big players, the companies, in a little bit of uncomfortable position. And again, these all things have a spiral effect. So, Shishir, that would mean they will increase the fare for the passengers, etc. I'm just having a hypothetical scenario about these potential
Correct.
ways
So,
in
so,
which it will
so
unfold.
it's a great question, and I think what is very important is that this cannot succeed unless all the people in the value chain, the technology provider, the farmer, the conversion company that makes the fuel, the company that distributes the fuel, and of course the airlines that use the fuel, and last but not the least, people who fly the aircraft, right? So all of them have to be aligned to say, yes, this is something that we need to do. And what is this? This is that we will make sure that we don't snatch the future away from our grandchildren. This sounds like a big political statement, but this is a fact that if we don't do anything,
Okay, so
our grand
allow me slightly lighter side. Remember the movie Diwar. So there is a
yeah,
scene where he says, "पहले उस आदमी के साइन लाओ जिसने मेरे हाथ पर ये लिख दिया था." And
yeah,
then his mother tells him that वो तेरा कौन था, वो तेरा कौन था,
yeah.
तो मेरा अपना बेटा था, etc. Comparison. The comparison is people will say the claim that you are making that it will help save future of our grandchildren. But see, the airlines is not the only way which is increasing the carbon dioxide in air. X thing is happening, Y thing is happening. How much percentage you calculate in terms of the total impact on the climate with these number of flights, etc. I'm just because it may sound illogical, but these are the kind of voices you have as protests.
Yes. So I think what absolutely correct that why only us? Why not somebody else? Are we the only bad boys in? I think that is not the question here. The question is we all there is one clear agreement now that we need to reduce the CO2 emissions, whatever we do from our activity. That is that on that there is no more any disconnect. Whether the community of scientists, whether it's community of political leaders, the community of social people, people at people level, I think everybody's on an agreement on that one dimension that yes, whatever we do, we must reduce the CO2 emission. That's number one. Number two, there are several what I say efforts underway. Many countries you probably have heard have announced a net zero target date. For example, I think United States is 2040, India is 2070. Depending on where the countries are today, where their development scale is, they are saying, all right, I commit myself that whatever I do, my policies will be such that it will drive the development from here onwards, such that over a period of time, 20, 40, 50, 70, whatever the period is, I will become a net zero emission. That means I will no longer emit any more CO2 into the atmosphere than what I absorb. That has been a clear commitment. Now, obviously, over a period of time, all the elements, so for example, power producers, we are seeing a big move of power which used to be traditionally coal based, nuclear, that's the number that or hydropowers, that's the stuff that we've heard about, has now moved, has started to shift to wind based power, solar power, more sustainable, so green power, biomass based power. So I think what's happening is that people are saying, okay, there are alternative technologies that are emerging, and it's very simple, as you rightly said, just to put the arguments in your head. If a sustainable technology is available, if I know that I'm not going to be disadvantaged, then I'm happy to participate to something that protects the future or that
Yeah.
pollutes less. That I think that's normal human tendency, right? So here, if I create a ground rule for all airlines which is same, then I have kept a level playing field. It is only when we create a field which is not level playing that all the distortions starts and then the trouble starts. But now the word is saying all airlines in the world, so then that's pretty safe. Yeah, and this is something when I and you live in very big countries, we don't realize it. But let us say you go to Maldives, they are scared. They are scared that in 10 years from now there'll be no Maldives. The sea levels will rise so much, and how much they have to rise? They have to rise 1 feet. 1 feet of sea level rise, and Maldives is gone. So they are worried. We as global citizens, we owe it to them because they are a small nation. They are not going to move the world. But and I'm just giving an illustration of an example. So there are ski resorts in United States, in Europe, which are not seeing snow this year, which have not seen snow 3 years ago. What happens to people whose livelihood is impacted because these are ski resort towns? So a lot of people, local people's livelihood depends on that. So we have to find a collective. We know a problem humanity is facing.
Yeah.
We need to
So
find a collective solution and implement it.
absolutely. And so, coming back to the positive side of it, it is also generating a lot of employment for the farmers. And
It
we have
does.
heard many sad stories about farmers committing suicide. So, this gives another opening for them to gain more when their produce is so much in demand. allow me to club this question with another side. Is it only your company which is in this field, or there are other players also who are working? Because once you have so much demand, it become like a monopoly if it is only your company.
No,
Two,
no.
you, yeah. So go ahead.
We are not a monopoly at all. We are one of the few. In India, we are the only one. But there are few companies. There are companies based of United States. There's companies which is based out of Europe. There are companies based out of China. Those who have worked on this for many years, who have found their own solutions, and there are different paths. There are companies that are already producing sustainable efficient, but on the other path, on this path, there are not any. There's no known capacity yet.
And
However, because the demand has emerged now, people have started to think about it and start putting it up here.
yes, they must be thinking overtime because if there is a deadline also, then you better have things happening. And let me repeat for those of you who have joined us a little late. Important development took place on Friday in India, and this tweet gives some idea. But here is the gentleman sitting with us today, standing with Minister Hardeep Singh Puri, Shishir Joshipura, CEO and Managing Director of Praj Industries, which have worked in collaboration with the aviation company. And this is the first passenger flight, commercial passenger flight that flew to Pune. Correct?
No, it flew to Delhi from Pune.
Flew to Delhi from Pune. Okay, so now the question is, were you also one of the passengers? Question number one. Number two, if not, did you get a chance to interact with passengers who, and the pilot? How did they feel? Was there any difference in their experience of the flight?
That's a great question. And so what happened was that I wanted to be on that flight, but I could not be because the flight was being received by another minister in Delhi. So I had to be there. It protocol only said that I should be there ahead of time. But our president of technology, our entire team that developed this fuel was on the plane. They flew along with on the same flight. We interacted, and this was, as I was saying, this is a collaborative effort. The Air Asia team was with us from. We have been working on this for almost a year now to make this into a reality, and we needed them on our side. So the pilot who actually commanded the aircraft has been talking from us from day one. He made it a special effort to say that no, whatever happens, I will commandeer that flight. And he was there. We talked to him afterwards. In fact, this was a question also posed by one of the Indian TV channels to him. And he said, you know what? When I was flying, as far as I was concerned, the engine was same, the sound was same, the vibration was same, the performance was same. I did not notice an iota difference. And the reason for that, Ashok, is that although we make this fuel from a very different path, that is, we start with sugarcane instead of crude oil, the final molecule is exactly same. So this is a drop in fuel. I don't mix. It's not a mixture. It is a drop in fuel. So for every molecule that I take out of the conventional one, I can substitute this with one of this. So it's identical molecule.
It may be difficult for us common folks to understand exactly molecule, what, how, etc. We just get fascinated by understanding that sugarcane is now converted into the fuel for flying. So that is how the farm to flight has taken place. And once again, let us take a look at this image. This is how it was received, and you look happier than the minister. What is the reason? And I'm just like, uh,
For me, obviously, it was I was representing my entire team. It's been an effort for many years, and for us, obviously, this was the real proof that what we can always talk about it at the lab scale, but to actually do this commercial scale and achieve this was obviously very very big day. And for me, what was very very special was when the honorable minister started his address, he started by saying today is a historic day, and I think that made the day for all of us.
so here is the first India's first commercial passenger flight powered by indigenously produced sustainable aviation fuel. It is historic in another way. The way we are talking. So Shishir and I studied together in Mahavir school. That was like 40, 50 years ago, and interacting with you like this is also a sort of personal historical moment moment for me. Shishir. So
Absolutely,
wonderful!
absolutely.
Congratulations to you. And once again, it is always fascinating how technology is changing and bringing about uh, a series of new experiences for us. And at the same time, we need to be cognizant of our responsibilities as a world citizen, as well as sons and daughters of Mother Earth. So, from that point of view, uh, being where you are, how do you see the world being transformed by the arrival of artificial intelligence, keeping in mind our concern for the climate?
I think a lot is set to change. There's a whole phenomena of energy transition that I can clearly see and I'm experiencing right now because I'm connected with it very closely. See, the point is this: so for a passenger who flew in that aircraft, it didn't make any difference because they had to do exactly the same thing that they would have done. But for us, it made a whole lot of difference because we are powering it that very very differently, right? So I think what's happening is as we start to gather more data, as we start to push more. Yesterday, the honorable minister said this was a 1% mixture in one flight. In 2025, I want every flight out and in of India to be a 1% blending, and 27% in 27 to a 2% blending. Now, numbers start small. As I was mentioning to you, in 2018, India was blending. Just before that, in 2014, we were blending 1.5% on methanol. We are at 10 today. In 25, we'll be at 20%. Now, that's a huge journey that a nation undertakes. Now we are talking of the whole world undertaking a journey. So it's very, very exciting time to be there. And at the end of the day, I always tell my team also, guys, this was something, a story that we will be able to tell our grandchildren, saying, you know what, I was part of this effort that will protect your life as you move forward.
Wow. So, on that emotional and passionate note, with a little bit of optimism and, as they say, light at the end of the tunnel. So, somebody in a lighter vein was saying it is very unfair. Why only at the end of the tunnel? Why not in the tunnel?
Why
So,
not in the
why not in the tunnel? So, we are actually having light in the tunnel also now with these ideas, I would say. And as we sum up, any thing you would like to add in terms of how gratifying it was to be a part of that historic moment?
well, for me, what was really exciting was that if you come to think about it, we are not a very very large organization. We are a decent sized organization. We make decent size of people. We got 2,000 employees. So we are not a 20,000, 30,000 people employee organization which is outreached everywhere. But here was a small company that has stayed true to its vision, that has stayed committed to this path for last 40 years. The rules are coming into place now, but it takes a lot of resilience and commitment to stay on the path for 40 odd years and stay strong and stay committed. And I think that's what the companies, and that is what attracted to me also. I've not been here for 40 years with this company. I've been there only for 5 years. But this is just amazing. Ashok, if you come, whenever you come to India next, please come and visit us. We'll be very happy to show you around on what we do. But different, this whole passion that translates itself into the work energy is really something to be very, something to cherish. This is something I'll always carry in my heart. Our ability to transform idea to reality, as you see behind you in the aircraft, was something that always.
Wonderful, Shishir. So joyful to talk to you, and time tells me to say goodbye with lots of thanks and congratulations.
Thank you, Ashok. Lovely meeting you. And for me, the real moment of truth, the fun was that I was connecting with my school buddy after so many years. It was a great fun.
The real history is made in different ways. So once again, CEO and what,
Managing director
managing director.
and friend of Ashok VYas.
Yes, yes, yes. So lots of good wishes, and thanks to Shishir, and thanks to all of you. And we all are proud when such wonderful developments take place. So